for the Personhood Initiative. He writes this: to change the hearts and minds of the public on abortion, it is necessary for pro-lifers to frame the debate to their advantage. The debate over partial birth abortion has furthered this strategy because it has forced the pro-abortion camp to publicly defend a particularly visible and gruesome practice. Well, by far and away, I would say, the most visible pro-life message of the past few years has been the personhood of the preborn, your message. The activists in this room are responsible for this message being heard throughout the nation, from the grassroots up through your signature drives and your public advocacy of these amendments. It's one thing to force people to reject a palpably gruesome practice, as Bob puts it, and quite another to put a name on the reason why they find it abhorrent. People need to consciously admit, especially those who call themselves pro-choice, why they draw a line at partial birth abortion and infanticide. You know, the word person is better than the word human. You know, the phrase human being, it's a kind of a zoological term. You know, all it means is you're an animal with a different kind of rationality. You know, they call it the rational difference, except Mortimer Adler wrote the best book on this that's ever been written, The Difference of Man and the Difference It Makes, where he proves the immateriality of the intellect. And it's the immateriality of the intellect, by the way, that keeps all of us gray-head people young. Because our rationality can't age. It can't age. It's immaterial. It can't grow old. It just gets better. You know, when my 21-year-old daughter says, "Dad, why are you being so silly?" I have an immaterial intellect, honey. Don't you get? It never ages. But the reason why rationality makes such a difference in us, why our kind of degree, a kind of rationality makes us the noblest thing in creation, that which, you know, the person, the choirs of angels, and the triune God share this name, this description, person, is because the immaterial intellect is what makes us free. It's what allows us to make choices that impact our happiness, that is, reaching our final end, that which we are going to be. It has a built-in desire for God, which can't be quenched. We all desire God even if we don't admit it, and it's a desire that can't be quenched by anything other than God. That's why mistakes about God are so serious, because it keeps driving you in the wrong direction. It's also how we love. We can love, we can choose, we can be free, we can seek our own happiness in ways in which no other animal can, because of that immaterial intellect, that which makes us a person. So it seems to me that one of the great advantages and selling points of the Personhood Initiative is that it's putting forth the richest possible truth about human life, the maximal view of what human life is. And it's challenging voters and it's challenging legislators to make a decision about first principles. Just who are these beings that we're seeking to govern? Who are these beings about whom we're seeking to make laws? Who are these beings that we're responsible for? Why do they have this inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? And Judy Brown, in her response to one of the critical pro-life lawyers, did a beautiful job. She put it this way. She said, there was a time when legislators understood that they were talking about persons like this, They were talking about persons who were still in the womb of their mothers. She put it this way: the personhood effort seeks to bring sanity back to the public understanding of why this amendment applies to every human being, including those not yet born. And then she adds, if our goal is to ultimately achieve equal rights for all human persons, then human personhood is the only road to travel. And I say amen to that. You might be wondering what happened the remainder of that summer of 1993 when I was in Aspen. I did get a chance to speak again to Justice Blackmun and to my friend Mortimer Adler about abortion. And Mortimer by then had converted to Christianity. He was an Episcopal, an active one, taught Sunday school. He would become a Catholic a year before he died. And several afternoons a week while I was there, with the great privilege of sitting in his backyard, smoking cigars, talking for hours. And it seemed like almost every afternoon we did this, abortion would come up. And I would put forward to him the metaphysics he himself taught, the Aristotelian metaphysics of act and potency, of first nature and second nature, meaning that from the moment any being comes into existence, it has its full nature, from the very moment of its beginning. And that everything that happened to it from then on was a realization of potency, an action coming out of potency. And every time I would back Mortimer into a corner, and the conversation would just stop, and he would mutter something like, oh, I can't talk about this anymore. I mean, my wife would hate me, my friends would hate me. I just can't do that. I just can't talk about it anymore. And the conversation with Blackmun would go the same way. So I came to the conclusion that their support for abortion wasn't really principled at all. Roe was an intellectually flimsy accommodation to the passions of the old feminist movement, passions neither Blackmun nor Adler wanted to oppose. For Adler, it was painful because he found himself in a contradiction that he was well aware of. He knew that good moral choices were not based upon personal preferences. He knew that sound laws weren't based upon accommodation to a sociological fad. And perhaps this fear of challenging the influence of some feminists, even if they're your wife and best friends, explains why contradictory laws presently exist in regard to the legal protection of the unborn. How you can have fetal homicide laws in a state where abortion is allowed, side by side. Only the intent of the mother to abort is deemed licit when it comes to the death of the preborn. All other forms of violent assaults on the preborn have been placed outside the domain of acceptable and civilized behavior. With the passing of the years, the Roe rationale appears more and more like the product of a vast sociological experiment, a moment in history when women, aided by compliant men, declared themselves free of creation's order. Seen in this light, the Personhood Initiative is nothing less than an invitation to recognize the more than obvious failure of this experiment. Given the millions of dollars spent opposing it, Planned Parenthood and the ACLU no doubt recognize the threat to naming the child in the womb. To Planned Parenthood, it's not really an issue of the government potentially investigating miscarriages, as it claims. It's the fear of having the emptiness and incoherence of their worldview exposed. Personhood, after all, is not a strategy. It's the core of a new charismatic form of politics, one that measures its message by the truth of things, nothing else. Thank you very much.